Hey everyone, I'd like to welcome you to a very special AMA that we're presenting from Portal. My name is George Burke. I am one of the co-founders of Portal. Now, I want to tell you why you guys are listening to this. It's extremely important. I'd like to welcome you to, oh, there's some feedback. How do I-
That that was me. I fixed it.
Oh, that's your feedback. Okay. I promise this is important. We started out putting together a project a few years ago because the crypto ecosystem has been faulty, yet everybody wants it. What I mean by that is uh, exchange, exchange between assets is the weakest link that the crypto ecosystem has. There have been hacks upon hacks upon hacks of exchanges or where they've lost your money to hackers. They have lost your money due to incompetence, or they have lost your your money due to government seizure. And this can't happen. It continues to, but it can't for the crypto sphere to be able to grow to the size that we know will take on global finance. We all wanted to, as early adopters, as early Bitcoiners. When I've been in the game since 2013, we believe that this is the future of money and this is the future of trade. But without safe trading, we won't be able to compete with TradFi. So what we've been building at Portal are cross-chain atomic swaps. These are swaps that allow for assets that are built on incompatible chains to be traded with one another in as trustless a manner as possible. Now, you've probably seen there are other cross-chain exchanges that are out there, DEXs even, but they're not truly decentralized, nor are they truly cross-chain. What must occur in order for a swap between one asset of one chain and an asset on another chain is that if this is a DEX, they must wrap the token from one chain onto the chain that the DEX is built on. And now that replicates the asset while locking up the original asset somewhere that could potentially be honeypotted. We've seen these bridge hacks happen all the time. We've been seeing centralized exchange hacks. That's one of the other ways in order to do cross chain exchange. So even just last week, Poloniex lost $100 million of consumer funds. This has to stop. And so Portal has put together cross-chain atomic swaps in order to bring that future forward. We can't see hyper Bitcoinization without this occurring. What's funny about it is that the crypto ecosystem has been held together by a hope and a prayer and some duct tape and some string. And yet, the Bitcoin price is in the 30s, is in the 30,000s. We've seen really strong price movement. In fact, in other countries, the Bitcoin price is the highest it has ever been against their own declining currency. So we need to support the growth of Bitcoin and the ecosystem as a whole by putting out our technology. So the announcement that we're going to make today is about our cross-chain atomic swap SDK. This way, developers can be able to hook into our ecosystem, bring liquidity, and hook into the liquidity that are from orders that are already in the system. I'd like to introduce my other co-founder, Manoj Dugarala, to explain what we've built and how you as a developer can use the SDK.
Thanks, George. I'll just add a few comments. When we started, we were starting out with building our own DEX, the cross-chain atomic DEX. But in the process, we realized that, for the network to flourish, we need to bring in additional liquidity. So we extracted out the elements that made the swap into an SDK. So any developer can use it into their wallets, their own exchanges. So we have done demos of these, atomic swaps many times. So I'll just skip all of that. And ever since we announced the SDK, we got many questions about what happens under the hood. So we would like to just jump in, give you a walkthrough of how it is laid out, and answer any community questions. And we have a sign up form for people who are interested in building with us, and many people reached out. So that'll be the ideal way. So because it's a relatively new concept, we would like to hold your hands while you do the integration, and so we're always here. Our team will work with you. So anyone who's interested, a developer or a company, feel free to reach out to us. So I'll just turn over to Anand, who is the architect of the SDK, and he will walk you through how it is laid out. And it's on GitHub. We'll open source it and open it up for public, in the near future. Over to you, Anand.
Thanks, Manoj. So first things first. What I'd like to do is walk through our Portal SDK codebase just as a basic introduction to some of the components of the system. So let me start by sharing the screen over here. Share screen, there we go. Share this. All right, are people able to see my screen? All right. So let me talk very briefly about a couple of pieces over here that we're looking at. So internally, we are using a monorepo to keep development and our developer environments very clean. There's a single developer environment, single portable developer environment that we've built that essentially allows anyone and everyone to access the developer environment and get started by running a single command. This is something I can show later, but essentially we use a technology called Nix that allows us to build portable developer environments so that every one of us, irrespective of whether it's me working or any independent developer, either internal or external, we will all have the exact same environment as our CI system. So everything remains clean. All libraries and everything, all dependencies of the system are identical. I would like to walk over a little bit of the structure over here. There's three major pieces that we have right there. Well, there's two major pieces. There's the portal backend, and then there's the SDK. And then there are some ancillary support modules. And one of the first things that we hope to open source soon, as soon as we are done with some code review and cleanup, is going to be the SDK piece. So within the SDK, there's a bunch of components or modules that we have. So typical of most NPM modules, you'll see all the standard files over here. There's a package.json file that sort of contains all of the dependencies of this thing. So you can see there's not a lot of dependencies. We have some dependencies on outside modules, but it's pretty much mostly developed in-house. Of the modules that you can see, like things like crypto browser file, events, or path browser file, these are mostly just standard node components that are being transformed for use within the browser. Further, you'll see two other components. There's index.js, which is the standard common JS export that is used by Node.js modules. And there's index.mjs, which follows the ECMA 6, the ES6 standard, which is primarily used for browsers. So as it stands, the SDK is targeting both node backends as well as the browser. So irrespective of which methodology you want to develop, you should be able to use the Portal SDK. Structurally, as you can see, there's not a lot going on in here. All it does is export an internal interface and attaches a bunch of events to bubble events up to the user. These are any events of import. But from the user's perspective, there's as it stands, there's a handful of things that they need to do. There's a start function, which is called pretty much to start the SDK when you're ready. And this sort of spins up your peer, makes all necessary connections to the backend, to the various blockchains, opens the store. So pretty much anything that the SDK needs to do to operate. And then there's a stop method, which essentially does the opposite, just spins everything down. Beyond that, there's a handful of methods that have been exposed. These are still to be cleaned up. Essentially, at this level, there will be no other operation beyond a stop and a stop. But the real action happens inside here in this internal clause, and this is what I wanted to show you guys. So the SDK is built using a bunch of modules, and there's a handful of modules that are primarily used. So there's two of these, which are basically the network and the store module. And this handles, as the name suggests, it is basically an interface to the underlying network. So irrespective of whether you're using a browser or Node.js, the network module essentially abstracts all those details away and up a very clean network interface that allows users or developers to very cleanly see what's going on the network. Similarly, the store does the same thing, except it's for storage. So you don't have to worry about whether you're operating in a browser or you're operating in a node environment. Where our hope is to support as many backends as we possibly can, from IndexedDB within the browser to other systems that you might want to use, for all the way from a local level DB all the way up to say an S3 bucket. All of those are supported. But the crux of all the action or the magic happens in these three classes. There's a blockchains setup, which is mostly in this pane over here, which handles all of our blockchain related inquiries. So anytime you want to speak to any third-party network, be it Lightning, be it Ethereum, be it Bitcoin, or any other new networks that we continue to add, this is sort of the interface to those third-party networks. These are designed primarily to get events, to basically make calls out to the network and sort of receive events from the networks, so that we know the SDK is in control of what goes on. The other two components are the ones that will primarily be used by the user. There's the DEX component, and the DEX component primarily is an interface to our decentralized exchange. And from the user's perspective, or the developer's perspective, there's two primary functions that you have to worry about. You can submit, as of now, we only support limit orders, but the hope is as we continue development, we will continue to add more order types. So you can have market orders, you can even have option style setup. These are all things that are in the pipeline that we will be developing. But as of now, we just have a couple of methods to either place a limit order or cancel a limit order. This should enable any user to essentially get the price that they're looking for. You can trade any asset at the correct price point, and the system will give you a guarantee it'll either be fulfilled at that price point or not. There's no notion of slippage or anything built in at this point. So you get exactly the price that you asked for. The other component is the swaps component, and this is essentially where all of our atomic swap action happens. So anytime an order gets matched on the backend, the backend basically triggers the creation of a swap. Now, the swap requires a few steps to happen on separate networks or by both parties, but the overall logic remains the same. So I want to talk a minute about the general notion of atomic swap and how it is achieved. Is there are two parties. They both hold assets on two different chains, and one of the parties generates a secret and shares the hash of that secret with the counterparty. And both parties then operate on their respective chains, not their respective chains, they operate in the counterparty's chains to create invoices and send it to the counterparties using that hash. And once the counterparty makes a payment, both parties go ahead and try to settle the invoices on the counterparty's chain, and that way they're able to pull funds back. So the swaps clause over here sort of handles all of that interaction. And even though it requires multiple steps, the SDK abstracts this entire notion away from the developer. So the only thing that the developers need to worry about is A, placing an order, cancel, and B, canceling the order at the appropriate time. And once the order is canceled, they don't have to worry about, they can go ahead and place the order again. But once an order is matched, beyond that, the only thing that developers need to do is hook into one of these swap events to basically see where the swap, what state the swap is in. And you can go ahead and either update a UI, or you can use that to take some other action, maybe observe chains, or just validate balance, what have you. All of those things are possible. But the one thing that the developer does not have to do is bear the burden of actually walking through the steps of the swap. All of that is taken care of by the swaps module here, which essentially, as you can, I can do a quick rundown of the code over here. The swaps module essentially listens for updates that are coming in from the network. So as you can see, it's essentially hooking into the network and looking for events of interest that are coming from either side. And you can see there's only 3 primary events. When the swap is received from the backend, when one of the parties sends the invoice to the other party, whether it's the holder or the seeker. And these are the only 3 events of importance. Everything else is happening through the events that are managed by the chain. So if you're talking Ethereum, both parties are observing the Ethereum EVM to see when a particular event occurs in the smart contracts. With regards to Lightning, when the invoice is sent, both parties observe the invoice on the Lightning network and get to know whenever payment occurs. So most of the code over here essentially runs through the swap. So right from when it is received, and the swap gets a secret created, the invoices get created and sent and exchanged by both parties. Either party ends up paying the invoice, and then both parties end up settling the invoice. And that sort of gets us to the final stage of the swap, which is it's completed. Now, most of this interaction, it's taken me, I want to say, roughly 15 minutes to talk through all of this, but this entire interaction is kind of anticlimactic in a demo which we've done before. It takes about 15 seconds and it's over. So for the most part, most developers never even see all of this action happening. Even if you're trying to handle UI updates, they happen very quickly through the steps. So overall, the design decision was to make this really, really, really easy for developers with minimal amount of cognitive overheads for them, so that they could focus on building that they wish to do with the exchange, as opposed to worrying about the dynamics of the exchange. That's sort of the whole 9 yards that I had to show. Are there any questions or concerns? Or Manoj, is there anything else to cover?
There were some questions. We'll get to them.
Okay.
I'll just add that, the first reference implementation with this is our own DEX, which will be launching soon. And we're already working with a few customers. Anybody who's interested in integrating it into their own project, it could be, we've seen use cases where it's a Bitcoin wallet, but they want to bring liquidity from Ethereum. So you can swap instantly there. So any of those use cases, we will support. Feel free to reach out. We'll be fielding questions from the YouTube page and also Telegram. So if you have any technical questions, please do.
We have a few questions that already came in.
Okay.
Before the stream began, there were a few questions that have been collected from the community on our Telegram. Manoj, do you have that list?
No. I have a list of questions from YouTube. Do you want to bring up the?
Sure. Let me ask you this question. This is an easy one. How unique is the Portal SDK compared to other SDKs in the industry?
I mean, I'm not aware of any DEX SDKs. I mean, there's Uniswap, which is different. This is cross-chain atomic swap. So I think this is very unique and first of its kind, as far as I know.
Okay. Can you tell me about the prerequisites?
Prerequisites for using SDK. Anand, I would say, you need the nodes, Bitcoin, Lightning, and, some way to interact with Ethereum. But other than that,
I mean, if you're talking about the SDK in terms of what do you need to run the SDK? For the most part, you will need, at least in our current build, you need a portal peer. So you need and setup that, and that is essentially being what we currently call Portal OS. It's essentially an operating system that contains all of the pieces that you need, including the UI. So technically, you could run this on your own machine. You could run it on you could run it on an AWS instance, or you could run it on the cloud, wherever you think is the most appropriate location to run this. As long as there's network connectivity, you are able to operate the node. And because it's a web-based UI at this stage, you can very easily just point your browser to your own node and start making trades. Oh, and I would also add for our power users, so folks that are long-time users and love to run their own infrastructure, we do have the option of allowing users to use your own, say, existing Bitcoin node, your existing Ethereum nodes, your existing Lightning nodes, in conjunction with our portal backend. So you're not necessarily required to run our or our Bitcoin nodes. We can operate with pretty much any existing infrastructure that's out there.
yeah,
So
one thing that we probably didn't mention is the monorepo that you guys just saw. That has the SDK. It has it is Portal OS, and it also has the UI, the DEX UI. So if you install that, you can run everything in the Portal ecosystem. But the SDK itself, we're also packaging. I'm sorry?
Is that at sdk.portaldefi.com?
That's the documentation. So if you're only interested in the SDK part, you can install it as an NPM package. But if you want to run your own node, the Portal OS, and participate in other functions like validation and stuff, you can do the Portal OS.
There's a user question here who had trouble downloading with following the steps from the documentation. What email address can he reach out to in order to receive help?
It's part of the documentation. So engineering@portaldefi.com.
Okay. We're being asked about the peer-to-peer DEX private beta. When is that going live?
Some part of early December, but right now we're still working on it. There's going to be several UX reviews before we feel comfortable putting it out there. But I also mentioned this in another AMA. Want to bet the best quality product out there. So we're working on it, and it'll be available before the end of this year. There's a question about, does this SDK have all the tech capabilities of Portal DEX? Yes. If this toolkit capable of automatically upgrading with the new functionality that the DEX might incorporate. That's the idea. Any updates we add to the DEX will also go to the SDK. So yeah, that's the idea here.
Great. There's another question that came in. It's not specific to the SDK, but it is important to address. The question is, when is the network token? So here is something important. The AMM, the launch of the mainnet of the AMM is not under the company's control. I can't tell you when it will launch, but our mainnet should be ready to have to turn the key. We're hoping within Q1, but we have the capability of distributing testnet tokens to our shareholders very shortly. that what we'll be doing, this is, I guess, an investor question, a shareholder question. We will be sending an email within a few days, if not next week, that explains the information needed to investors so they can play with the DEX and also play with the SDK. These testnet tokens are an important part of the launch of the ecosystem.
Yeah, they get to be the validators and test the network in testnet.
That's right. Are there, let's see if there are other questions that you want.
Is this officially launched for commercial use? Good question. So the license we're using now is business source. I think for commercial usage, we will work with you. But the idea is that, we're following Uniswap model. So it'll be a restricted use for the first few years, and then it's transitioning to a GPL. Does Portal use endpoints on different networks to complete swaps like layer 0? Yeah, it interacts with different blockchain networks. That's what you're asking.
There's a question came in about shares. This is not a shareholder meeting, but the person says, "What's the use of shares?" Well, Portal is a privately held company. We want our investors to own everything that we own. It is important to be to have financial fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders. Many ICOs that have happened in the past have been rug pulls. They have no responsibility to their investors who bought tokens. We take the opposite approach. Are there any other questions here that you have the ability to answer? Anything?
How is the product related to offer on Republic?
Yeah, please say that louder.
There's a question about how the product is related to the offer on Republic. What are the benefits for investors on Republic? Guess George already answered that. They're also shareholders, so all the benefits that we get, they get.
That's right. Remember, we will be able to distribute testnet tokens, so that way our investors can play with it.
Did anyone had success getting the SDK via NPM? It's a private package, so we will work with you. That's why there's an invite code. So if you're interested, reach out to us.
Now, remember, I think we'll close this out unless you guys have anything more to say from the engineering side. But the email address to reach out is engineering@portaldefi.com. Remember, you can get to the documentation at sdk.portaldefi.com. That has been put into the chat inside of the YouTube video link. Any other links or important piece of information, Anand or Manoj?
Not that I can think of, but keep in mind that this is in active development, so a lot of things will change. And that's how, engineering is done at this stage.
Yeah,
We're really excited to see what you have to build. We want you guys to create.
That's the same concern I would like to say. Like, if you see any bugs, if you see anything broken, or if you see something that is not accurately represented in the documentation, please reach out. Please let us know, because this thing is in flight. We have code pushes every day now, so it's really hard to understand to make sure that everything we do our best to do that. At the same time, if you see something broken, please let us know immediately.
Thank you, Anand.
Forget, we'll be continuing to release additional information as time passes. This will be about the beta, about the launch of the AMM. All of this will be revealed in good time. So right now with the SDK, you're welcome to use it. We are really excited to see what you have to build. Thank you.
Thank you.